Hey guys, what's up? It's JR Cuber, and in this video we have another unboxing from thecubicle.com. In here should be all of the new Celeritas puzzles, so let's go ahead and open it up and check them out. Alright, we've got a bunch of stuff in here. Looks like we've got a Valk 5M, GTS3, Gan 356X, Waylong WRM, and a AoSu WRM. Okay, awesome. I'm very excited for this. So, Celeritas is the newest lubricant from the Cubicle. I did a whole video on it if you guys haven't seen that. And now, like with the Angstrom line and the Mystic line and everything, they've come out with a whole line of puzzles pre-set up with the Celeritas lubricant. And I'm very excited to check out all of these puzzles. I don't even know where to start, honestly. I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the Gan, I guess. So we have a 356X here, which is interesting. We don't have the XS, so I'm not sure if there is an XS version, but this one is just the X. Comes with a whole nother set of these. I have so many of these at this point. And then of course we get a cube stand, which is nice. I've got a big collection of those too. So a lot of these puzzles tend to not be super great out of the box, so I'm not expecting super amazing things from this. I really like the logo on the yellow side. That is super sharp. Hopefully it doesn't peel off really quickly like a lot of the other logos do, but let's just go ahead and test it out. So right off the bat, this is a pretty tight cube. It feels pretty gummy. It's quite slow right now. It doesn't actually feel gummy, it just feels tight, honestly. Oh, this is the IPG system too. So I don't actually have a Gan X like this. So glad to actually have one in the collection, right? But yeah, I am not sure why this feels so tight, because the tensions aren't terribly tight. So Celeritas is basically a two-part lubricant, right? So basically you put a little bit of the A part and then you break it in a little bit and then you put the B part in, and then it makes it, it's supposed to make it very kind of glidey and smooth and soft feeling, kind of like that. Right now out of the box, this isn't feeling any like softer or more glidey than my Gan X, which is already broken in. This is also much slower. Not necessarily a bad thing. The Gan X, my Gan X at least, is like kind of too fast. But yeah, like I said, it's probably going to get a lot better with break-in. So same thing with the Mystic puzzles. I didn't really like them that much out of the box, and then they all became my mains. So every single Mystic puzzle that I got became my main. So who knows if the same thing will happen with these puzzles, but let's go ahead and check out the GTS3. All right, so in here we get another set of these. I also have a bunch of these little bags that have the tensioning tools and screwdrivers and stuff. And we get another yellow stand. All right, here goes nothing. So this one feels better out of the box, at least. This one feels like it has a lot of lubricant on the internals of the pieces, and just by opening up, I can confirm that. It just feels like there's more lubricant on the inside than there is on the outer edges of the piece. Interestingly, this one actually feels kind of too loose. So yeah, this one I'm getting kind of more, oops, hold on. Trying to talk and solve at the same time. It's not easy. This one has a much more loose feeling, like the pieces are kind of wanting to separate a little bit when I'm making my turns. But overall, yeah, I mean, it pretty much just feels like a GTS3. It has a much, I feel like it has a much more muted sound though. The GTS3 is kind of loud, but the Celeritas seems to be making it a bit quieter. I feel like I can definitely notice it more on this puzzle out of the box at least. All right, let's check out, I'm just gonna do 3x3s first. Let's check out the WRM. So the WRM is an interesting cube because I really didn't like it when I first got it, but as I gave it more break-in time, it continued to get better and better until it became my main. And I love the worm now. So I'm very interested to see what this one is like, because my Mystic worm is starting to wear out. Maybe this will be able to replace it, hopefully. All right, yeah, so this one feels very similar to what I remember the Mystic worm being out of the box. This feels a little bit faster than that one did though. It feels like a very lubricated, well lubricated worm. Like My Mystic Worm, now that it's been broken in a lot, some of the lube has started to kind of wear down a bit. And it doesn't feel quite as lubricated, but this one definitely feels like freshly lubricated, not broken in. I mean, that's how all of these are going to feel, right? Yeah, so even out of the box, this worm is actually performing quite well. So I'm liking this a lot, actually. Universally, for me at least, the worm has taken more break-in time than a lot of other 3x3s. This one actually feels relatively usable straight out of the box, and it just keeps getting better the more I'm turning it. So the lube is breaking in really fast on this one, which is a good sign. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the AoSu. The AoSu worm. All right, another stand, no accessories with this one. I just did my video on this puzzle a little while ago, so I just kind of came off of using this. So very curious to see how different this one feels, because mine, I didn't set up like super heavily. I didn't do a whole lot to it. So this is going to be like fully lubricated and fully set up. Let's go ahead and test it out. Okay, yeah, so this one is quite gummy, and I can tell it's going to take a little bit of time to break in the lube on this one. The inner layers seem to be very, very well lubricated. Hopefully this doesn't have the same problem that the Mystic AoSu did, because that puzzle I honestly couldn't even really use properly. Oh, whoops, I'm about to get a pop here. Until I wiped out some of the internal lube on the inner layers. And also, that was not a very good sign that it almost got a pop, because I have never gotten a pop on my other WRM. So maybe the tensions are a little bit loose. They do kind of feel a little loose, so I might go ahead and tighten them up a bit. We'll see what happens with the inner layers. The biggest thing about 4x4s that I just tick me off constantly is when the inner layers are like so gummy and slow compared to the outers. And one of the things I really liked about the AoSu worm was that the inners were actually really fast. So the fact that they're so gummy right now is a little bit worrying. Hopefully they'll break in and kind of equalize with the outers. But it's possible I'll have to do the same thing I did with the Mystic AoSu and wipe out some of that internal lube. Just doing turns though. Same with the 3x3 WRM. It's getting faster, it's getting a little better, so I'm sure with a decent amount of solves, it'll be pretty good. All right, last one in here, the Valk 5. So I never got an Angstrom Valk 5, a Pro Shop Valk 5, anything like that. All I ever got was just the standard one. So I'm very excited to have one that's set up properly. Let's go ahead and try this out. Ooh, I can already tell I'm gonna like this. This feels really great, just straight out of the box, which is a very good sign. So not quite as fast as I would like it to be. It's not really as fast as my Valk 5. This cube feels quite loose. I'm getting some piece separation that's not a good sign, but the feeling is there. It's definitely very, very smooth, very quiet. Yeah, not really as smooth as my Outrong, but the Valk 5 is just not as smooth of a cube as the Outrong is anyway. But the overall just feeling of the puzzle is really, really nice. So yeah, overall, I'm excited about these puzzles. So all 5 of these puzzles are pretty promising out of the box. None of them have completely blown me away with their performance. But like I said, I'm very optimistic about where all of these puzzles I think will end up with some break-in time. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and solve with all of these puzzles, and then I will be back and do a quick review on each of them. I have reviewed all of these individually though, so I'm not going to go super in depth with the performance. All right, I'll be back. So I've been using the Celeritas puzzles for the past few days, and the biggest thing that I noticed about these puzzles is the break-in time. After the first few averages, the feeling and performance of these puzzles pretty much reached what it would be like for the rest of the break-in time. Usually puzzles that have these custom setups change quite a bit over time, but it seems like with the Celeritas lube, that break-in time has reduced. There's also a bunch of other lubricants in these puzzles, so there's Lubrical Black in here, Angstrom lubricants, D&M, all kinds of stuff, but it seems like a nice mix in most of the puzzles. Across the board, these cubes have a very crispy, smooth feel rather than a more plush, pillowy feel that the Mystic lube provides. They're also all on the more controllable side, meaning that the setup is not ideal for the fastest speed. Some of these cubes I definitely like more than others, so let's just go through them, starting with the Gan X. For me, the Gan X has been a very fast and somewhat uncontrollable puzzle, but the Celeritas version is quite the opposite. The puzzle does come with quite tight tensions that I did loosen a bit, but the overall feeling is still much slower and more controllable than my previous Gan X, and I've really enjoyed solving on it. The Celeritas does remove some of that softness from the Gan X feel, so this puzzle is a bit more crispy and rough. Personally, I don't think this is the best lube setup for this puzzle, but it is very effective in making it controllable. I still prefer the feeling of my previous Gan X though. Okay, now for the GTS3. The lube setup has slowed down this puzzle a lot from what I was used to, and break-in didn't really change it that much. I'm used to a very responsive GTS3, but this one just feels a bit on the sluggish side, like it's having a bit of trouble keeping up with my turns, which I don't really like. This one is much smoother and less harsh than other GTS3s I've used, and it's considerably more quiet. So I think for some people it will be a more enjoyable experience, but I tend to prefer a faster, more aggressive feeling in my GTS3s. Overall, this setup does a really good job at toning back the harshness of this puzzle, which is good unless you already liked that aspect of the cube. All right, moving right along to the WRM, which turned out to be my favorite of the bunch. This one definitely improved a good amount with some break-in and feels much more like my Mystic Worm did when it was starting to get good. The main difference is that this puzzle has a bit more crispiness to the turns than that one did at the time. The Mystic Loop in my Mystic Worm has worn off a bit, so that puzzle is much more crispy and fast than it was, but this Celeritas version just feels like a more crispy smooth version of the Mystic one when it was fresh. So I've really been enjoying solving on it. I'm thinking this one will also only get better and better with more and more break-in, so I'm excited to keep using it. Next up, we have the AoSu WRM. So this one is probably my least favorite of the bunch, which is the same thing I said about the Mystic AoSu GTS2, so we'll see how time favors that opinion. But for me, this cube still just has inner layers that are too slow, and the outer layers are so much faster that they just kind of feel uncontrollable and loose. The puzzle also pops occasionally, which is really annoying. My other AoSu worm doesn't do that, so I'm thinking it's the tensions. But yeah, the inner layers just have a lot of lube applied, which really makes the cube feel inconsistent. 3x3 stage is pretty great, but everything else, not so much. So now finally onto the Valk 5M. This one comes very close to being my favorite of these puzzles. The loop setup complements the feeling of the Valk 5 pretty much perfectly, and this cube needed hardly any break-in. Unlike some of the other Celeritas puzzles, this one feels very responsive and speedy, and the more crispy smooth feel that you get from this setup pairs really well with the already crisp turns of the base Valk 5. The turns seem to glide more fluidly than on my base Valk 5, and overall the feeling has been improved quite a bit, I think. So yeah, the Celeritas Valk 5 is definitely a winner. So overall, some of these puzzles I do like, some don't quite fit with my solving style, and I think that's fine. If you like more controllable setups, this is definitely going to be right for you. And of course, you can modify the setup all you want afterwards. I tried to keep these cubes relatively close to how they arrived, as I didn't want to review custom setup cubes like these after I've changed everything about them. And overall, I think they're solid. Time will tell if these cubes stack up to the Mystic and Angstrom puzzles, and if the description of Celeritas is correct in that they are supposed to greatly reduce the need for break-in, I'm thinking that the feeling and performance of these cubes will stay consistent for some time, which can be a pro or con depending on how you look at it. The Mystic cubes changed pretty drastically, but only after a lot of break-in time. So if these cubes do stay consistent in their feel and performance, I see it as a pro for people that don't want to solve with a cube they don't really like for a long time, just to hope that it will eventually get better. So yeah, Celeritas cubes, check them out. They're the same price as the Angstrom puzzles, a little bit more expensive than the Mystic puzzles, and the link will of course be in the description. Thanks as always to the Cubicle for sending me these cubes for free to review and for sponsoring the video. If you guys like this video, make sure to hit that like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.